My sister called me a free maid in front of everyone, smiling like I was only there to carry her perfect wedding. But she had no idea the dress, the venue, the planner, and the whole beautiful lie were sitting on my card, and the receipts in my folder were about to speak louder than her vows. My name is Vera Whitlock. I am 42 years old, and for most of my adult life, my family has used the word helpful when they really meant available. I was the sister with the steady job, the plain apartment, the old calendar on the fridge where every bill had its own little square. My younger sister, Maurice, was the one with the beautiful emergencies. Her emergencies came dressed in satin, perfume, tears, and last-minute deadlines. A rent payment that had to clear before noon. A credit card that only needed one tiny bridge. A dress deposit she would absolutely pay back after next Friday. And because I had spent years being trained to believe love meant stepping in before anyone hit the floor, I stepped in. Again and again and again. Then, 3 nights before her wedding, at a rehearsal dinner I had quietly helped pay for, Maris lifted a glass of champagne, smiled across the table, and told 30 people, "Vera isn't successful. She's just useful." The room laughed in that careful way people laugh when they do not want to be the next target. My mother, Elsbeth, pressed her lips together but did not correct her. My father, Bram, looked down at his plate like the roasted chicken had suddenly become very important. Maris's fiancé, Hollis Renner, gave a polite little smile because he still believed the version of me Maris had sold him. In that version, I was the bitter older sister who had never married, never built anything glamorous, and never understood joy unless it came with a spreadsheet. I sat at the end of the table beside the emergency exit wearing the navy dress Maris had approved because she said it was modest enough for my personality, and I felt something in me go completely still. Not broken, not angry in the loud way. Still. Because while Maris was calling me useful in front of the florist, the groomsmen, and half our family, my credit card was sitting under the entire wedding like a silent support beam. That is the part nobody at the table knew. They saw the crystal centerpieces, the imported roses, the harpist in the corner, the gold menus with Maris and Hollis stamped in raised letters. They saw my sister's bright smile and her diamond catching the candlelight. They saw a woman who had built a luxury wedding through taste, confidence, and perfect planning. What they did not see was the folder in my tote bag under my chair. They did not see the bank transfers. They did not see the venue deposit in my name, the bridal boutique layaway attached to my card, the planner's retainer I had paid after Maris cried in a parking lot, or the bakery invoice that had my billing address on it. They did not see the last email from the venue manager, which said the final balance would auto-charge the card on file at 8 a.m. the next morning. My card, my limit, my name, my future. And Maris had just called that name useful, like it was a broom leaning in the closet. Before I tell you what I did, you have to understand how a woman ends up financing a wedding she is barely respected enough to attend. It did not begin with the wedding. It began years before, in smaller rooms, with smaller numbers, and a family that had a talent for making refusal sound like cruelty. Maris was 26 when she first called me from a beauty salon, whispering that her card had declined and the stylist would not let her leave until the balance was paid. I sent $180 because I was embarrassed for her. Then came her apartment application fee, then her dog's emergency vet bill, then her credit card minimums, then a designer purse she claimed she needed for client meetings, even though she worked 3 afternoons a week at a boutique that sold candles. Each request came wrapped in the same soft sentence. "You know, I would never ask if I had anyone else." And I believed her, because believing people need you is easier than admitting they have learned how to use you. When Hollis proposed, Maris became a different kind of dangerous. Not cruel at first, radiant. She called me crying happy tears, saying she finally had a chance to become the kind of woman people respected. I wanted that for her. I really did. So when she asked me to hold the venue while Hollis's bonus processed, I gave the number. When she said the dress boutique required a payment plan under someone with cleaner credit, I signed the form. When the wedding planner, Corinne Bell, said she needed a retainer to keep the date, Maurice looked at me with those wet blue eyes and whispered, "Please, Vera, don't make me look cheap in front of Hollis's family." That was the hook. Not the wedding. Not the money. The shame. My sister could survive debt, but she could not survive looking ordinary. And because I had spent 42 years looking ordinary on purpose so other people could survive, I paid. If you have ever been the person they call when the dream is beautiful, but the bill is ugly, you already know how quiet this kind of damage can be. Stay with me and subscribe, because the part that looks like generosity at the beginning can become a trap so carefully built that you do not notice you are standing inside it until someone thanks the bride and laughs at the woman who funded the flowers. By the week of the wedding, I had become less of a sister and more of a service department. Maris texted me seating charts at midnight and asked me to confirm balances she claimed were already handled. She wanted me at fittings, but not in photos. She wanted my card for emergencies, but not my opinion about the guest list. She told Hollis I was helping with errands, which was technically true if you consider covering $3,800 in overdue vendor payments an errand. I told myself the wedding would be the end of it. One last rescue, then the beautiful emergency would finally be over. That is one of the lies useful people tell themselves to survive another invoice. Just this once, one more time. After this, I will be done. But done never arrives by itself. Done has to be chosen. And usually it arrives after someone you loved says the unforgivable thing in a room full of witnesses. The rehearsal dinner was held in the private dining room of a restaurant called Alder and Finch. I know because I paid the deposit there too. Maris had insisted it would set the tone, as if marriage were a theater production and not a vow. The tables were covered in ivory cloth. Hollis's parents sat near the fireplace, polished and distant. My parents sat near Maris, where they always sat, close enough to orbit her glow. I had spent the afternoon picking up place cards because the calligrapher would only release them to the person whose card was on the file. When I arrived, Maris looked me over and said, "Good. You didn't wear black. I was worried you'd bring funeral energy." She said it lightly. People smiled. I swallowed it because I had swallowed smaller blades all week. Then came her little speech. She thanked Hollis. She thanked her future in-laws. She thanked the planner, the florist, the photographer, the woman who had steamed her veil. She did not thank me. I was not surprised. You do not thank the floor for holding you up. Then one of the bridesmaids, a glossy woman named Tansy, asked how Maris had managed such a flawless wedding without losing her mind. Maris laughed, tipped her champagne toward me, and said, "Oh, I have Vera for the boring stuff. She was basically my free maid. She's not successful. She's just useful." That was when everyone laughed. And that was when I realized my sister had not hidden my contribution because she was ashamed of taking it. She had hidden it because admitting it would make me visible. And Maris could tolerate my money. She could not tolerate my importance. I went to the restroom and locked myself in the last stall. Not to cry. I wish I had cried. Crying would have been warmer. Instead, I opened my banking app with hands that were steady in a way that scared me. I looked at the pending wedding charges, the venue final balance, the dress release, the cake transport fee, the planner's last installment. Every line sat there waiting for morning like obedient little soldiers preparing to march out of my life. Then I opened my email and searched Maris's name. Hundreds of messages rose up. Urgent. Please. Temporary. I'll fix it. Don't tell Mom. Don't tell Hollis. You're the only one I trust. That last sentence used to make me feel loved. Standing in that restroom, it made me feel robbed. When I returned to the table, Maris was laughing at something Hollis's uncle had said. She did not look at me. She did not know that the useful sister had just become the informed one. I sat through dessert. I clapped when they played the slideshow. I even helped my mother find her coat. Then I went home, took the folder from my tote bag, and spread 6 years of my sister's emergencies across my kitchen table. I made tea and forgot to drink it. I opened a spreadsheet and began entering numbers the way a doctor records injuries: rent, credit card, boutique deposit, venue hold, planner retainer, bridal shoes, alterations, rehearsal dinner. The total was not a number at first. It was a temperature in the room. By 1:18 in the morning, the truth was sitting in the bottom corner of the screen. $27,440, not including interest, not including the damage to my credit ratio, not including every hour I had spent pretending none of it hurt. The strangest thing about seeing the total was how calm it made me. For years, the money had felt foggy because fog is easier to walk through than a wall. But a number is not fog. A number has edges. It can be held. It can be shown. And mine was sitting there with receipts attached. I printed everything. Every transfer. Every vendor email. Every invoice with my name on it. Every text where Maris promised repayment and then never mentioned it again. The printer clicked and hummed in the dark while my sister's wedding slowly turned from a fairy tale into evidence. At 6:40 the next morning, Corinne Bell, the wedding planner, emailed me, polite, bright, professional. She reminded me that the venue balance would be charged to the card ending in 4421 at 8 a.m. to release the ballroom for final setup. She asked if she should proceed. There it was, the decision hidden inside a courtesy note. I stared at the screen and thought about Maris under the candlelight, calling me a free maid. I thought about my mother laughing into her napkin. I thought about Hollis smiling politely at a lie he had been fed because no one had ever put the truth on a plate in front of him. Then I typed back one sentence. Do not proceed with any charge attached to my card. Corinne called within 30 seconds. Her voice had lost its brightness. Vera, is there a problem? I said, yes. The bride has represented my payments as her own, and I am no longer authorizing charges under my name. Corinne went very quiet. Wedding planners, I have learned, are fluent in disaster. She asked if I wanted to cancel the wedding. I said no. That mattered. I was not trying to burn down the day. I was refusing to be the invisible lumber holding it up. You can contact Maris for payment, I said. If she pays, the wedding continues. If she does not, that will be her decision, not mine. Corinne exhaled. The venue will not release the ballroom without the balance. I said, then I suppose my sister has a very honest morning ahead of her. By 8:12, my phone began to light up. Maris first, then my mother. Then Maris again. Then Hollis. Then my father. I answered none of them. Useful women are trained to answer quickly because delay feels like cruelty. That morning, I let the phone ring until it sounded less like an emergency and more like a habit dying. At 9:03, I sent one message to the family group chat. I will be at Mom and Dad's house at 11. I will bring the records. I will not discuss this over the phone. Then I put the folder in my tote bag, changed into a gray dress no one had approved, and drove across town. My parents' kitchen had always been the courtroom of our family, though we called it a kitchen because that sounded kinder. Maris was already there when I arrived, still in her silk robe from the bridal hotel, mascara under her eyes, phone clutched like a weapon. Hollis stood by the sink looking confused and pale. My mother was crying before anyone had said a complete sentence. My father leaned against the counter with his arms crossed, already tired of a truth he had not heard yet. Maris pointed at me the second I walked in. "You jealous, bitter witch," she said. "You waited until my wedding weekend to punish me." That was the third hard insult, and this one did not cut. It clarified. I set the folder on the table. "No," I said. "I waited 6 years for you to tell the truth. You chose a microphone and called me a maid instead." Hollis looked at Maris. She looked away. That was the first crack. Not the folder. Her face. The little flicker of knowledge that told me she had hidden more from him than money. My father said, "Vera, whatever this is, we can fix it." I looked at him then. Really looked. "Dad, every time this family says we can fix it, you mean I can pay for it?" He flinched. My mother whispered my name as if I had cursed in church. I opened the folder. I turned the first invoice toward Hollis. Venue deposit. Paid by Vera Whitlock. Then the planner retainer. Paid by Vera Whitlock. The dress layaway. Paid by Vera Whitlock. The rehearsal dinner. Paid by Vera Whitlock. I laid each page down slowly because speed would have made it look like anger, and I wanted them to see this was not anger. This was accounting. This was a body being identified after years under rubble. Hollis picked up the dress invoice. His hand changed around the paper. "Maris," he said very softly, "you told me your aunt gave you this money." Maris started crying. Not the beautiful kind, the cornered kind. I was going to pay her back. I slid the spreadsheet to the center of the table. Then column 4 should have been very easy to fill. Hollis looked at it. My father looked at it. My mother sat down. Maris did not look. People who live on fog hate edges. The total sat there in black ink, $27,440. Under it, a list of unpaid promises. Beside it, vendor balances still due. I said, "I am not canceling your marriage. I am not calling guests. I am not touching your vows. But I removed my card from every vendor this morning. If you want the ballroom, the dress, the cake, and the flowers, you will pay for them with money that belongs to you or with truth that belongs to everyone." Maris said, "You ruined me." I shook my head. "No. I stopped dressing up your lies." Hollis put the invoice down and stepped back from the table. That was the moment the wedding truly changed. Not because the venue was at risk, because the groom finally understood he had been planning a future with a woman who had built the first day of it on another woman's silence. He asked Maris how much she owed me. She said she did not know. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was perfect. She had spent my money carefully enough to use it and carelessly enough not to count it. The luxury wedding did not happen. By 2 in the afternoon, Hollis's parents had covered a small chapel deposit because they wanted the ceremony to proceed if their son still did. The ballroom was released. The imported roses were canceled. The gold menu stayed in a box. The dress boutique refused release until Maris paid the final balance herself, so she wore a simple cream suit her future mother-in-law bought off the rack. The cake became cupcakes from a grocery bakery. 50 guests became 15. There was no harpist, no chandelier, no grand entrance down a staircase she had not paid for. And I did not attend. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because for the first time in my life I could tell the difference between being invited and being used. The family called me cruel for weeks. Aunt Leona said I had embarrassed everyone. My mother said the timing was harsh. My father said I should have come to him privately, though I had no memory of him ever privately defending me. Maris did not speak to me for 3 months. Hollis sent one message after the wedding. It said, "I am sorry. I didn't know." I believed him. Not because ignorance is innocence, but because his confusion in that kitchen had looked real. He and Maris still married. I heard the ceremony was quiet. I heard she cried through most of it. I heard Hollis insisted they begin their marriage with a repayment plan written and signed in front of a notary. That was the first wedding gift I respected. As for me, I changed every card number. I froze my credit. I met with a financial counselor and said out loud, for the first time, that family had become my most expensive bill. I moved the folder to a drawer where I could reach it, not because I wanted to live inside resentment, but because evidence is useful when guilt tries to rewrite history. 3 months later, the first repayment arrived. $200 from Maris. No note, just a transfer. I looked at it for a long time. Then I entered it in the spreadsheet. Column 4 was no longer empty. It was small. It was late. It did not heal everything. But it was real. Maris and I are not close now. Maybe we never were. Maybe I had mistaken access for closeness because she always knew how to reach me when something cost money. But last winter, she came to my apartment with a grocery store pie and stood awkwardly in my doorway. She looked smaller without the performance. Older, too. She said, "I shouldn't have called you a maid." I said, "No, you shouldn't have." She waited for me to soften it. I did not. Then she said, "I think I liked being the kind of woman people thought could afford things." That was the most honest sentence she had ever given me. I let her in. Not all the way. Just into the living room. Some doors should open slowly after years of being kicked. So if you are the useful one, the steady one, the person with the card on file and the name on every emergency, listen to me. Help is not love when it has to stay hidden. Generosity is not kindness when it requires you to disappear. And a family that only respects your sacrifice after you print the receipts was not failing to see you. They were benefiting from you being unseen. If this story touched something old in you, tell me in the comments about the time you stopped paying for someone else's image. And subscribe, because sometimes the quietest woman at the table is not empty-handed. Sometimes she is just waiting for the printer to finish.